Hi and welcome to July 2022 Patreon rewards video. So this month, it doesn't seem like there's a whole lot of work here. It doesn't seem like I produced a lot, but it's because the work that I produced was very time consuming. So I did some illustrations and it took a while to actually do the illustrations. So that's why it seems like there's less work, but there's actually a lot of hours put into the work. So there's that. So let's get started. So last month I started an image, and here I finished it. This image I eventually called it by its name. It was inspired by a Marian icon called the Panagia Platitera, which is in English it's Our Lady of the Sign. So if you just Google that, you'll see the actual many versions of this image. This was inspired by that image, so that's what this is. And so this is the final version of the image. I am very happy with the way it turned out. It's exactly kind of what I wanted it to be. It seems to me that this is kind of at the moment where I kind of want to go. But the interesting thing about this image is that it's all the stuff that I learned about using Clip Studio Paint to do the image, like this outline, this white outline that's on everything. That's a Clip Studio Paint. It just automatically puts a white outline on there. I mean, I've done a video that depending on when I upload this particular video, it shows you the tools that I used in Clip Studio Paint in order to get these effects. So that was, and it's extremely helpful. I'm very happy with the way that this turned out. If you want to know a little bit more about the symbology of this, you could just Google it. Like I already gave you the name of the icon. You can look it up and see what it means. But yeah, one of the things about this image is that I really what I wanted to do, and I'm still debating on how to do this, and I'm not quite sure exactly what to do about this, but what I kind of want to do is either print this on wood and then go into it and manually put a gold leaf on it and gild it in areas where I would think gold would be appropriate. So that's one thing that I'm thinking about doing, or use this as a prototype image and then actually literally paint it traditionally on wood itself from scratch, like just. But I'm not 100% sure that I have and I would have to do it with acrylic paint, and I don't know if I have the skill at the moment to do the painting. So I need to practice using acrylic on and actually do real painting on different surfaces in order to like practice doing it so that I can figure out if I could even do something like this. And notice how much detail is on this thing. So it's extremely detailed, and that's on purpose. I'm trying to I'm heavily inspired by, say, like anime and gothic and goth art and things like that. That I mean, like modern art that has basically stolen iconographic aesthetics and made it contemporary. And then I want to take all that and then the contemporarization of that stuff and then bring it back into like an iconic type image. So it's an icon informing modern art, which then I'm bringing back to an iconic type image. So it's a weird, it goes back and it gets recycled into something else. Like that's kind of what I'm doing. And the more I read and the more I understand this stuff, the more I realize that that basically everything that we're doing in any form of art is an icon anyway. We draw what we worship, which is very disturbing to me, because it shows, at least to me, what I worship. It's the icon. So if I'm drawing all these, if I if so on the one hand, I draw a lot of superheroes and stuff, right? So that on the that is not so much worship as a form of drawing the symbols by what the superheroes represent, which is, again, that the symbols of what the superheroes represent is a type of worship. And then there's also the ladies that I tend to draw, a lot of them being very sexy and etc. And then I'm like, oh, what am I saying here? What am I worshiping here? And it's a little disturbing. So it's making me rethink what I'm doing. So yeah, so this is kind of like, okay, maybe I should centralize on what I ought to be focusing on here. It's a weird little meta comment on what is happening in my brain, and yeah. So okay, sorry, I was clicking on something over here. That's why the image went away. Okay, so the because I want to control where I want to go here. All right, so I'm going to go back to this. Okay, so this is the postcard for this month. And the winner of this postcard is Shopping for Noobs. Shopping for Noobs, you have won this postcard. You've won so many postcards. Seriously, like, you've been around, you've been supporting me for so many years. And you just keep winning these postcards, man. So congratulations. This was an interesting image. So again, I'm drawing a pretty lady. Again, there's that notion of beauty as well. So like you draw what you worship, right? There is a thing. Now I'm being a little bit more conscious about what I'm painting and what subjects I'm working, unless I'm doing a study, in which case it's just an exercise in rendering or anatomy or execution. So there's a different emphasis when I do a study as opposed to doing a drawing or a piece of this. And so a lot of these things are all about light and beauty, and I'm trying to capture the notion of grace coming down, and that's the idea of these light, luminous kind of postcards that I'm doing. So I'm doing that. So I'm trying to capture the luminosity of the light coming down from above. And those are what the themes are. And then I use beautiful women. I want to draw beautiful women. Why? Because beauty is, as I did a video talking about this, beauty is the physical manifestation of the good. If beauty is the physical manifestation of the good, then I want to be able to draw the physical manifestation of goodness. Beautiful women are really easy representations of said manifestation, right? So it's like a shortcut to drawing the beautiful. Like I could do a landscape and stuff like that, but for me, my heart goes to feminine beauty. And I've always been, and it always kind of, at first it bothered me, but now I recognize that what I recognize about that is that form of physical manifestation of the beautiful there's nothing wrong with it. So I embrace it, and then I try to elevate it, right? So that's the idea behind these postcards. All right. So here's the next image here is this. Okay, so I did this image. I did a video how I made this image. Where did this image come from, and why did I even do it? I'm not gonna. I'll explain a little bit of it at the end, but why I did this is because I've joined a collective. I forgot what it's called, 3U Unity. I'll link to the Instagram of that collective. But it's a bunch of artists that are come together. They're just Catholic artists. But our boss, there's a boss. Like she owns a company, and she's doing some interesting things in Canada. And then so she hires me for commissions for artwork. And the commission this time, among the artists that she has in the collective, is the theme for the month was vacationing with Jesus, which was a terrible theme. I thought it was an awful theme because surfing and going to the park and picnics and stuff like that. And the only thing that I could think of, which was just kind of awful, was the buddy Christ sitting next to you while you surf, and it just sounded awful. So I was like, oh my gosh, what am I supposed to do with this? And I got to pick one of these things to have to do. And so I picked hiking. And the reason I picked hiking was because of the notion of the forest and being hiking in a forest. Basically, that's what it was specifically. And so the notion of the forest was extremely symbolic to me. I knew that there was something there that I could work with. So that's what I did. And one of the things also here and then a beautiful lady. I drew a beautiful lady, of course, because I'm attracted to feminine beauty. But in this case, what I thought would be most appropriate is that I'm going to draw a beautiful lady, but I didn't want to create a woman from scratch or create a prototype of a pretty lady. I happen to be married. I happen to be married to a beautiful lady, so I thought I'm just gonna draw my beautiful lady. So I drew my wife, being the symbol of this beautiful lady. But I also needed somebody hiking, so I had to make her hike, and so I put her in hiking outfit, and she's hiking through the forest. And then the rest of the icon, or not icon, but iconographic type symbolism came, and I had to put that all together into this kind of image that I kind of wanted to have a more symbolic thing than just simply a narrative painting or narrative image. So eventually it ended up, the final piece ended up looking like this, where I added some text, because one of the things that I've been doing, one of the things, and I'm going to eventually, I think, make maybe a video about this, I'm not sure, is this book. It's called Christian Oriental Philosophy of Art, by Ananda K. Kumaraswamy. And this kind of talks a little bit about what's the word? The classical Eastern and medieval notion of art, as opposed to the postmodern notion of art. But one of the things, and I guess I will make a video about this so I could talk a little bit more deeply about this thing. But one of the things that gets put forth gets proposed in the book is the notion that the traditional idea of what art was is that at some level the art is functional, right? It has a functional. It's not art for art's sake. It's an execution of something that eventually is functional, but that has a layer of symbolism to it, and beauty. So all these things on top. So after I finished drawing this image, I was like, but this has no function. It has no function. What's the use? What's the use of this image? It has no use because you look at it and you don't even understand it. It was really annoying. So I decided to add an element. I decided to add this text over here to give it a function, so that if you print it out, if it was printed, or if you have the image on the wall, it gives you food for thought. The function being deeper than simply the image, because the image has an idea in it, but the idea is not understandable by looking at the image. Sadly, it's the problem right now. So I decided to add the purpose of the image, the reason I painted specifically these things, these elements. The function is to make you think about these elements, and that was the function of the image. It's not just an image for image's sake. It's not art for art's sake. It's a functional image that is meant to bring you to something, to at least make you meditate or think about stuff. So that was the idea here. And the idea, so I'm going to read what I wrote, just so that you know what this image means, and then I'm going to move on. Okay. What do trees mean in Scripture? They mean a few things. One thing is they represent humanity. They reach up to heaven with their branches and leaves. They are grounded on the earth with their roots. And the trunk is the bridge between both. Humanity is like a tree, a bridge, the fusion between heaven and earth, between the spiritual and the physical. However, trees were also in the Garden of Eden. The central tree in the garden was the tree of life. We can say it's the tree, from which all trees are merely symbols. In which case, a forest is a garden by God, full of icons of the tree of life. And the fruit of the tree of life gives forth eternal life. And the fruit of the tree is Jesus Christ, who hung on a tree for us. So the Eucharist being that fruit. Okay, so next time you go hiking in a forest, realize you're surrounded by God-created icons that are meant to lead you to contemplate Jesus, who is with you, the fruit of eternal life, unifying heaven and earth. And so that's the idea. Like there's a lot more. I could unpack this. It's really, there's a whole lot of stuff. There's all this kind of inlayered symbology, the fruit of the tree, the crucifixion, why the tree, why the use of the tree, like all these things. It's just super like integrated and symbolic, and it's just really deep but it's heavily influenced by the thoughts of Saint Ephrem the Syrian and other Eastern church fathers from the early AD century, like first 300 years of AD. Okay, so that's that. It's going to be going to the next one. Okay, and so then there's this. Okay, this is my sketchbook drawings. I was at the beach, and so I started drawing something at the beach because I just felt like taking out my sketchbook and drawing. This is just sketches of the face of Adam. If I was to draw Adam, if I was to draw man, what would it look like? I actually asked my daughter about this. So, like, if I was to draw an icon of man, what it would be, what would I draw? The reason why I wanted to draw the icon of like an image of man, of human is because of the cherub. I'm still trying to figure out how to draw a cherub, and a cherubim, and I don't know quite how to do that yet. I mean, I've got plenty of examples of actual icons of cherubim throughout history, and I'm trying to figure out how to marry that and how I'd like to represent it. It's really a really difficult thing. Okay, so then and then my boss on that wanted to commission me to draw Saint Peter or Saint Paul, and then I told her that I don't think, because she wanted me to finish it by the end of June, and I didn't think I'd be able to. It's possible that I would have been able to finish it, but at the time I didn't know, because I didn't know my schedule at work and all that other stuff. So, but I told her that I would probably be able to get as far as drawing a sketch. So I found an icon of St. Peter that I kind of wanted to emulate, and then I started trying to design a St. Peter that I would like to be able to draw. And so these are like some of the sketches of St. Peter, and then she said, "Don't do it. I'll just do the vacation one." And so this is not quite abandoned. I'm still thinking about doing the icon of St. Peter when I have time, but this is some of my preliminary sketches. And then the next sketch is this. Here's some sketches of that image. I was trying to figure out. See, so here's the thumbnail of what the image that I ended up doing, and then here's the pose of the hiker that I originally drew, and then this is another icon that I decided that I wanted to do, and so I'm thinking of doing this icon now, and so I started it. So here's this icon. It's in a rough stage at this point. I'm still working on it. I'm still trying to figure it out. I'm not quite sure if it's working or not. It's really very difficult, but eventually it's going to look extremely fancy. So that's that. So that's what I'm doing. And then I'm going to do, and then upcoming, and this is so I'm kind of taking my time. This is not part of the commission. I'm doing this on my own, but part of the commission that the next commission that I got to do is an image that represents the hymns of paradise. And again, this is hymns of paradise. This is Saint Ephrem the Syrian, the hymns of paradise. So what is the hymns of paradise? Hymns of paradise is, okay, so we know of the Canterbury Tales, for example, and we also know of Beowulf, right? And we know of Milton's Paradise Lost, and we know the Divine Comedy. So we have these epic poems that are, and we know, Shakespeare. We have these epic poems that are very culturally significant. And when I say Beowulf, I mean that we actually know that scholars read Beowulf in its original language, and that is translated into English. So there's a disconnect, right? We lose that connection between the original language and the original poem. And so also the things with a little bit with Chaucer, but he's speaking in Middle English, so you could kind of read it. Shakespeare, we read it because it's in English. and then we have the Divine Comedy, which is translated from Italian. But there's a lot of poetry that the West doesn't really know too much about, uh, because it may have been translated into Greek and that's as far as it went, or maybe Greek in Latin and then that's as far as it went. And then we kind of don't have some of the poetry that we probably would have, um, that would be more influential, for example. Because I see, like I said, Milton's Paradise Lost is written actually in English, right? So, okay. Um, this hymn, it was written in Syriac. So in the West, we don't really know a whole lot about it, and it's only been within the last 30 years that this poem, this hymn, which is meant to be sung, but it's now since the music has been lost in time, it's just basically an epic poem. And this is a hymn. Look how fat this is. This is okay. Uh, this is apparently uh, Dante Alighieri, who wrote the Divine Comedy, read this and kind of stole some of it. Um, but this is a hymn that is similar to Milton's Paradise Lost and the Divine Comedy 1,000 years before these poems were written. So this was the precursor to all those poems. This is about this is basically about Paradise Lost and Regained. It's a weird eschatological thing. It's very interesting and extremely deep. Um, and it does remind me a lot of the Divine Comedy, which I have read, and I have also read Milton, but this is extremely deep. I can't. So, and I'm supposed to make an image off of it, and I'm still halfway. I'm not even quite halfway through it. I'm making my way through it, and uh, it's there's a lot here, and I don't know what I'm gonna make an image of. I don't know. It's um, how do you make an image of something so cosmic? I don't know. I don't know. I have no idea. Um, it's too much. So, but I'll try to figure it out. I mean, it's uh, when you look at, say, images of the Divine Comedy, um, they're usually just Dante and Virgil talking to some dude that's in a pit or as a tree or just is carrying a boulder up the mountain or whatever it is, and because that's really the Divine Comedy is mostly him walking around having conversations with people. This hymn is not quite that. Like in Paradise Lost, the story is about Satan. It's about Lucifer, and it's basically just about hell. Like it's mostly about just fallen angels in hell and 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 um, the thing about the early church fathers is that they didn't talk about hell all that much. Um, they would most they more they they preferred to speak about paradise and 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 the good things, the union with God more than hell. That's not to say that they didn't believe in hell and they didn't believe in the devil or any of that stuff, but the focus was mostly on paradise, which is what this is, and it's fast. It makes paradise as interesting as um, Dante makes hell, right? Oftentimes, people are fascinated with hell, the first half of the Divine Comedy, which is in the Inferno, is the most popular, is more popular than reading Purgatorio, which is actually my personal favorite. Purgatorio is my favorite, and Paradise. And I think this is much more interesting than Dante's Paradise, actually. Um, because th- because this book um, uh, is really interesting. It recognizes that paradise in Genesis and the Book of Revelation are talking about the same thing. So when you look at Revelation and then you read Paradise, it's actually there's an overlap. In both books, both books are a bridge. They're connected. It's it's crazy. It's crazy. So this book connects uh, Revelation with Genesis, and then in doing so, um, the entirety of the biblical narrative, which if you really understand that the biblical narrative was written by a bunch of people who weren't intending to write a single story, but for some bizarre reason, that if you are a materialist, doesn't make any sense. The entire uh, biblical narrative has a narrative, and it's actually it has a beginning, middle, and an end, like a narrative. Um, uh, when you look at Revelation and Genesis, and then it connects the entire narrative. It's crazy. So it's a really interesting hymn. It's a really interesting poem. Try to create an image of that is insane. But it's fascinating, and it's one of these weird things where I'm reading it and I don't want to stop reading it because I like being in paradise. I like being in paradise. It makes you in paradise. Like, it's weird. So yeah. So that's coming up with. I don't know what I'm gonna do. I don't know what I'm gonna do. But that's the next thing. Okay. So anyway, that's it for me. Thank you for supporting me on Patreon, and putting up with me discovering all these things that are making me think way too much. Okay, so thank you so much for supporting me. If you like this content, please continue to support me, and then I'll try to continue producing this type of content that maybe at this point will start elevating the imagery that I produce to a deeper, higher level than just merely aesthetic superficiality. I don't know. I don't, and I'll talk a little bit more about the philosophy of art and traditional versus postmodern, and then we'll see where that goes. But anyway, thank you for watching. Thank you for your support. I really appreciate it, and I'll talk to you next time. All right, bye.